Virtual reality is a form of gaming that takes immersion to a whole new level, and many games have found out how to effectively use this immersion to enhance the experience of the game. The Walking Dead has zombies, Half-Life Alyx has beautiful graphics, Blade and Sorcery has combat, and Boneworks has physics. Having played all these games, I've come to love VR and all the potential it has, but I've noticed a gap in the market. There really aren't that many good horror games. Now, I know we have Phasmophobia, FNAF, and all the other VR horror titles, but when you look at how many VR games the other genres have, it seems like there should be more, especially considering that horror is the genre that would benefit most from the immersion that VR brings. So, I'm here to fix that. I've been obsessed with the horror genre since I was 7. It started with Venturian Tale, playing scary Gmod maps, and from there it evolved into creepypastas and SCP. I don't need to get detailed on all the horror I've gotten into, but I feel safe saying that I am a horror enthusiast, and I am fully capable of making a really spooky horror game that can leave the player feeling uneasy. So I started coming up with an idea. After around 5 different ideas being tossed around in my head, I settled on what I thought would be the most effective. Basically, it's a chore simulator where you do things such as wash dishes, take out the trash, and other boring chores, but you're slowly going crazy. In the beginning, I don't want the player to have any idea what they're getting into is a horror game, but by the end, I want them to be questioning their own sanity. So I had my idea. I downloaded Unity, my gaming engine of choice, and opened up a new project. Wait. There's one major thing that I may have forgotten to mention. I have no clue how to make a game. I've taken classes in school that use Unity, and I've started a multitude of projects, but I've never actually gotten anywhere with any of my projects. I have a major tendency to get distracted and never finish a project or even really start any. But this time it would be different. The idea I had come up with had been catered to be a really good first game, with simple gameplay that wouldn't be hard to code and a low polygraphical style that'd be easy to model. I knew there would be many challenges ahead, but I got to work. The first thing I wanted to get done was a VR rig. You can't really have a VR game if you can't play the game in VR, so it seemed like a good starting spot. With no clue how to do this, I went to an inexperienced game developer's favorite place, Google. After a quick search, I found a tutorial series that told me exactly what I needed to do, and that's what I did, and I ended up with this.
Okay, welcome to the testing scene of my VR game. Basically, I've got a basic VR rig using a couple YouTube tutorials just to teach me how it's done. As you can already see, I have continuous movement, snap turn, teleport on both hands using the trigger button. That's actually an interesting glitch. I have not noticed if I press down on the other trigger, it will teleport for me.
This would be the first bug I encountered on my journey. Bugs will be a consistent problem, as I have a huge issue with typos, and if you've done any amount of coding, you know how damaging a typo can be.
That's odd. Anyways, basically, this is just a basic testing area, right? I've messed around with teleport areas, teleport anchors, all the basic stuff. I can pick up items, I can grab items from afar, I can use items using the trigger button, or of course whichever button I want. Of course, something like the gun, the ball aren't going to be in the actual game, but they're just testing items. I have a little raycast that can interact with UI. I can do drop downs, I can do sliders, buttons, whatever you want it to do. You can open up cupboards, only grabbing from there. If I grab from here, it also works, never mind. Yeah, just using basic pivots and all that stuff. It's really basic stuff in here. And of course, big thing, we got gravity. That's always pretty awesome. Basically, this is just a testing area just for me to get the VR rig down, because the main component of a VR game is being able to play it in VR.
With the VR rig completed, I was now on to making the entire rest of the game. Though, instead of starting to actually code the gameplay like a smart person, I decided I wanted to figure out what the map was going to look like. My justification was that I could see what all was inside the house, and from there I could decide what chores I wanted to add. So I started mapping out the walls and the floors of the room, like living room, dining room, all the basics for a house. Before I had even finished the walls of the first 3 rooms, I decided to start adding lighting. This was one of the worst decisions I have ever made. When I first started to light the scene, I chose to use a spotlight. The spotlight was okay, but I wanted to make something that looked a little better. I looked up a couple videos on lighting and stumbled across emissive textures. After watching a video on them, I decided they would look nice, and I put some in the scene. After baking the lighting, I saw that they made my floor texture look odd. After searching the lighting settings and not finding a solution, I pushed my problem away and I continued making the walls. After I had finished what I wanted to of the walls, I went back to the lighting. I still couldn't figure out why my floor textures looked so bad in baked lighting, so I ended up remaking the material, though I can't remember what I changed. I baked the lighting, thought it looked nice, and went into play mode. That's when I noticed my hands were black. I guess it never occurred to me that a baked light map would not affect moving objects, and with no other lighting in the scene, everything that moved was pitch black. After figuring out that I would need real-time lighting, I went to the lighting settings only to find no option for real-time lighting. I spent almost 2 hours trying to figure out how to reactivate real-time lighting, but my pea-sized brain could not comprehend any possible solutions. And then I found a video on how to light indoor scenes in Unity, and it used point lights. Through this entire dilemma, I didn't even think to add any sort of point light or spotlight, even though I had used one when I first lit the scene. After adding my point lights and getting real-time lighting working fine, I finished up all the walls and I started to add the doors for the bedrooms and the washroom. I spent way too long trying to remember how I made hinge joints, but eventually I figured out and I got the doors working. With the outline of a map done, I can really see this game starting to come together, but that's all I can put in the video. As you can tell by looking through my channel, this is the first video I've actually produced. I've tried making some gaming videos before, but I always end up getting bored, and none of them were edited to the extent of this one. I don't expect anyone to actually make it to the end of this video, but if you did, then thanks for taking the time to watch me make my first game. I'm having a lot of fun learning how to code games and edit videos. The next video will likely take me a couple weeks, as I will now be actually coding, so if you want to make sure you see it when it comes out, consider subscribing. With the minimal amount of subscribers my channel has, I wouldn't count on YouTube to recommend it. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.